Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 196. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You can drop a follow over there. You'll get notified when we go live, so you join on the fun and conversation with us. But if you can't catch it live, that is A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Right, Moose? Right. Last but not least, any way you can support the show, like, share, subscriptions, comments, reviews, whatever it is. It may seem small, but does help the channel grow. So if you take the time to do that, we would love and appreciate you for it. Today, topics. We're talking video games today for this episode. Let's kick it off with a game that I actually just beat on stream not too long ago, as of recording this week. I want to talk about Crash Bandicoot 4. I know it's a little bit old. Well, a little old. It literally came out 3 years ago? 2 years ago? I'm a little delayed on my response, like everything. But I had a fun time with it, so I kind of want to talk about my experience with Crash 4, my experience as a whole with the Crash Bandicoot series, and yeah, just chat about that for a little bit. So, we did beat it on stream, like I said, as of recording last week. Had a blast with it. It's the normal chaos of Crash Bandicoot in at least the platformer games, where timing is everything. Controls are wonky. Some things go your way, some things don't. And it's just that rage in the best way possible that builds up when you're trying to overcome these obstacles of getting through the levels, hopefully without dying and breaking all these stupid crates. Had a blast with Crash 4. It had this timeline of like the different universes or timelines crossing over, which obviously seems to be the hit with everything now is multi-universe, the stuff like that. But I had a fun time with it. You get to have the opportunity to play as different characters too. You can swap to Coco at any point and play as her. But then later on, you get the opportunity to play as even other characters from the character history, I guess, of the franchise. So you get to play as Dingodile. You get to play as Tawna, which I believe is like the main lady you're saving in the first game. I apologize, I don't know. And then you even get to play as Dr. Neo Cortex. And each of those characters, bring a little bit of different gameplay to the table. Nothing, I would say, astronomical in terms of, that was really fun. But you have to tackle each of the platforming levels a little bit different, whether it's their jump speed or movement abilities or attacks, whatever it is. You got to adjust to those. And they allow you to play different levels just focused on those characters. That's like, this is what's happening with this character at the same time the main quest is going on. Which I thought that was pretty cool that they threw those in there at least, kind of spice it up instead of just, the normal Crash Bandicoot stuff, as there's been quite a few of those games over the years. But Toys for Bob and Activision crushed it with this one. It was a lot of fun. My experience with Crash isn't too in-depth. If you watched 2 episodes ago, where we talked about my top favorite 100 games, yes, there was a bunch of them that I forgot. I'm even thinking of another one right now that I think I shouted it out. Spyro, but that's a different tale of it. But I talked about a story about playing games on the PS1 at my uncle's, him not having a memory card and having to restart pretty much every time we went over there. But Crash Bandicoot 1 was another one that we played quite a bit when we went over there, and I was awful at it at the time. I don't think I made it really, really far. If I made it into the second kind of stage or platform, maybe the second or third world, or however you want to call it, I think it was probably the farthest I had gotten at that time. With the eventual Crash Insane trilogy that I believe also Toys for Bob did. Definitely Activision, obviously. But when that came out, that was my first time diving back into that fully and playing that all the way through. And sorry, Moose is exploring. You coming up? You gonna say hi? I know. That was my first time playing through the entire game and seeing at least the depth of what you could do in there, of obviously you want the break as all the boxes. That's going to be getting a check mark. You could do the time and the speed trials, and there's the hidden gems or the completion gems. I don't recall what they were in the first one. But seeing that was like, oh, I can see how this is a totally another level just besides the... it sounds awful, but the hair ripping out in the normal levels. I remember there were some bridge levels in Crash 1. I think the Long Road was one of them, was entitled. That one always frustrated a lot of people, myself included. But when that trilogy came out, that remaster, that was the first time I played entirely through the first one. And I haven't dipped my toes into the second or third installments, so I have no experience there. I think the only other Crash experience I had before jumping into 4 was not Crash Team Racing. I didn't play that first one, but Crash Bash I played a lot, enjoyed that. That was like the Mario Party kind of spin-off like title. And then I played a bunch on PlayStation 2 of Crash Nitro Racing? Crash Team Nitro Racing? Yeah, I think it's that one. That one was a lot of fun. I know they did a remaster of both the original Racer and that for more current consoles. Played a little bit of that remaster as well. Didn't hit as exact nostalgia, maybe just because I was on the initial CTR stuff compared to the Nitro. But overall, that was my experience with Crash. The other one was, I believe, a Game Boy Advance game where they did a little Spyro Crash, like they swapped universes and were dealing with each other's problems. So jumping into this one, I don't know. I don't know if it was just a lack of, like, I haven't played a platformer in quite some time, but I was really intrigued to jump into it. We jumped into it first over Extra Life. I thought it was something that would be engaging enough over that overnight span that would keep me going, keep me paying attention, and not, or help wane off the tiredness that I was going to experience there. So we jumped into it there. We had a lot of fun with it. Got stuck at a level or two here. That's just in terms of like die, repeat, die, repeat, die, repeat. But we had fun with that. So I was amped to jump back into it and play through the story at least fully on stream after that. And yeah, like I said, it was just a lot of fun, just the panic moments. I will say I have no idea how anyone 100% or platinums these types of games. We alluded to the speed trials earlier. Like, obviously the first few levels, you know, you can see how it's done, or you can figure it out. Like, I think we at least did that for the first worlds. We attempted the speed runs. We did get the highest or the fastest medal or relic, as they're called, for maybe one or two of the levels. But that aspect, and then the 100% or getting all of the boxes, I don't know how people do it farther in the game, especially those later levels. It's absolutely insane. Kudos to you guys if you are doing that to finish these games. That requires a lot of patience. And I know there's probably people who are like, well, Bret, you did that with Neon White. Like, you didn't platinum it, but you certainly, you know, got all of the times needed for the base game, and then went from there to get that, at least the campaign and the story mode in that finished. And that's true. I don't know if it's just one of those things like putting the time into it and then going from there, if that would work. It's just, if you watch the live stream, you could see there were certain moments of like me hitting that wall of frustration. And I don't know, once again, if it's just the moment of like, all right, walk away, come back to it, something like that. But yeah, it's just impressive to think, well, impressive in a way, insane in another way to think, oh my God, there's all these requirements. Not really, but things you can do or try and chase after in terms of unlockables, which also, I will say with Crash 4, I did appreciate the return of unlockables. And what I mean by the return is just not a lot of games have those now, or at least it seems definitively less than in the past. Just with, you know, obviously the rise of DLC, developers are going to put it more into that, because obviously more money for their team, their studio, their projects, and that's how they can do the unlockables or make the cosmetics that we want instead of putting it behind a task or objective based in the game. Still, they're there. It's just not as prevalent, or doesn't feel as prevalent. And Crash 4 has a lot of those. They have a lot of skins that you can unlock for either Crash or Coco as you're going through. I don't think they had any for the side characters, but that was a nice little surprise. They're all locked to this gem system. So there's 6 gems per level, 3 for getting like a certain amount of the Wumpa fruit, one for getting all of the boxes, one for doing it the level in under 3 deaths, and then one for the speed run. No, sorry, there's a hidden gem. There's a hidden gem somewhere in all of them. So you have that 6. If you get all 6, then you can unlock a costume for your character. So not too bad, not awful. But another thing that helps also is eventually in the game you get the inverted levels, which is the same level, but it's mirrored. So you don't go like back to front, but if you were going to take a right turn, you'll take a left turn, so on. Excuse me. So they add that. So they add another layer of depth to the game of like things you can do, which is appreciated, but also they added gems to that as well. I believe it's the same requirements, it's just now it's the other level. And with a combination of those, as long as you get any 6, then you can get the costume. So that's kind of nice, especially, excuse me, when you do get into the harder levels. If you don't feel like you can do the 100 boxes, or in my case, the under 3 deaths, if you want to mix and match, you're still able to get those skins or those costumes for your characters without it feeling super impossible. Obviously, some levels are going to still be more challenging than others, but at least they provide a little bit more of an opportunity for players to earn those things instead of just being like, well, it's there, I'm never going to get it. So that was nice, once again, because technically more levels to play, more content to do, and then having that objective to work towards, which, as we talked about, there seems to be a lot. Whether it's these gems, whether it's the costumes, whether it's the speed trials, whatever it may be. There's a lot to chase after for beyond just the base story and game that they are presenting at the beginning. There's a lot to do if you decide and choose to do that. I don't know if personally I'll be taking the time to do it. I may still jump around in there a little bit, just kind of, challenge myself with some things. But as I mentioned, the platinum, I do not think this is a game that I will ever platinum trophy. That would require a lot of patience, especially with the time trials. Who knows? But I highly doubt it. I feel like there was something else I wanted to shout out. Okay. Well, let's talk about the story. So, story's great. Simple, but fun, entertaining, short, not too bad. I think we took 3 streams to do it, so probably 8-9 hours. And for the most part, like I said, you get to those later levels and you realize, oh, there's a difficulty, raise here, which you would assume that's how it should be. Kind of the nice little slope up towards the end of the game. For some reason, that second to last level, holy shit, there is a spike in difficulty beyond belief. The whole gameplay, or the whole time in the story with the timelines that you're jumping around, there's these masks that you're saving. There's 4 different masks that add another level to the platforming aspect where they change, or rather add a mechanic to the game, which is nice. Keeps it fresh, keeps it exciting. So there's 4 masks. There's one that allows you to invert, or rather phase things into reality. So there may be boxes or platforms that are highlighted in this like misty blue that are transparent. If you use the mask, those become solid. Other ones will become the transparent items. You can flip them back and forth. All right, not too bad. Second one you get, you have like a power spin that allows you to glide a little bit as you're jumping, and you can destroy some harder objects or tougher enemies. Great. Third one is a time one. Slow down time. Not too much really you could do there. And the last one is inverted, where you swap the gravity of which way it goes, and you can either walk on the ceiling or you got to slingshot yourself around obstacles. All of those fun to play around with, and towards the end of the game, they start mixing multiple masks into levels. And at this difficulty spike of the second to last level, you have to quickly swap the masks. Like, they're floating objects, you go grab them, and the Crash puts them on, or whatever character you're playing as puts them on, and you have those abilities. You have to like trigger your brain to be like, okay, I have this mask on, I gotta do this for like a stretch of like sequential actions in order to finish it. And man, oh man, it was insane. I know a lot of people, if they went back and watched how many times I died, I think it was 86 in total. God damn. Some people are like, what? You're joking me. No, it was disgusting. There was a lot of stupid mistakes, for sure. I believe around the 50th life, I was like, all right, this is the run. This is the one I'm going to make it. I could see the end. I got to the last part. You got to do a little bit of a gravity swap. I swapped it, didn't realize there were lasers on the top, didn't revert it, whoosh, went right into that. If I just swapped it, I would have been at the end of the level and I would have called it a day. But it was fun. I can't say it wasn't not frustrating, because it was. But it was a good time overall, just that chaos that there was. And that's what these games bring. But yeah, it's just insane. Once again, going back to the time trial thing, thinking like, how do people do this? Especially a level like that. I get it. Repetitions, practice. You know where all the boxes are. You know where all the enemies are going to be, the timing of things. Maybe that's it. It's just rep, repeat. Similar to any other game. We talked about Neon White earlier, learning those things. You could akin it to a Hades, like once you kind of figure out what boons and powers you're going after, that process of defeating Hades himself isn't that big of a deal compared to your first run. It's just one of those things, I guess, where the more you play it, the more experience you as a player obviously get, and the easier the experience is going to be for you. But outside looking in, man, oh man, looks nuts. But yeah, I had a great time with Crash 4, jumping back into it. It actually kind of makes me want to go back to the Insane Trilogy, maybe dive through those 3 games, obviously replaying the first one and jumping into 2 and 3 for the first time. But once again, I think the Toys for Bob team did a fantastic job here, and they've done a lot of good projects, or good jobs with their projects, the remaster work that they've worked on. And it's unfortunate Activision's kind of sucked them in and be like, you're not doing that anymore, Call of Duty stuff. Who knows if with the Microsoft acquisition, if that will change. I hope it does, but obviously time will tell there. So yeah, just wanted to gush about that a little bit, about my experience, and a good time we had. Yeah. So let's jump into topic 2. Let's continue talking about games. Let's talk about gaps in knowledge with games. This is a bit of a kind of a revisit. We talked about IGN's top 100 games list, just kind of seeing like what I had played, what I hadn't played, seeing where I kind of stood on that list. So I wanted to revisit that topic and talk about just, some omissions, I guess, in my gaming history of things I just haven't touched, haven't played, have no experience with. And there's a few standouts. So let's jump on into it. So a lot of the Nintendo library, I would say that I'm definitely missing out on. I think, once again, if you watched our top 100 games podcast from a few weeks ago, I talked about how I didn't really own a console myself until the PlayStation 2. I guess before that would be the Game Boy Advance. That was my first, technically, video game. Like, I own this. There was the computer that, I would use at my parents' house, but it wasn't mine. The Game Boy Advance was mine. The PlayStation 2, we got as a family, but primarily was mine. But those were my first experiences with games in my own house. The rest was just outside looking in, go to families, go to friends. They happen to have something, we'll play them. So I did get a little bit of experience with like the Super Nintendo, the Sega Genesis, and the N64, but never fully dived into those libraries. I would say probably with the N64 specifically, the ones I dived into the most were like Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2. Those ones we played a bunch with friends. GoldenEye we talked about. That was another dip of the toe, but that's a memory of like, that was one we played a lot. I'm trying to think. I think we did a little bit of like the Star Wars, the Pod Racer, doing those. We talked about the Super Nintendo with obviously Super Mario Bros. Or rather, that was not the Super Nintendo. That was just the NES. Excuse me. So Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt. And then just really quick glimpses at like a glimpse at Zelda, a glimpse at I think my buddy had F-Zero that I watched him play. What else was on Super Mario 64, the big one. How could I forget that? So things like this, I never fully delved into. Like, I think I had only watched Super Mario 64. Never played it myself. I haven't played any of the Metroids. Zelda, the only Zelda game I've personally played is one of the more recent ones. No, not Breath of the Wild. It was Link to the Past? No, Link's Awakening, the cutesy remade one for Nintendo Switch. That was my first Zelda game, other than a quick dip of the toe into the NES, which I don't even recall the title for, just might have been Zelda, or Legend of Zelda, and being lost as a kid. So a lot of the Nintendo library I would kind of missed. Donkey Kong Country, we actually talked about recently on stream. I played the Game Boy Advance version of that, but I think that was another one I missed on the N64. Played a little bit of Mario Kart, but I think more of the GameCube was when I jumped into that kind of stuff. So that's a big gap. If we're going to continue on to Nintendo, I didn't own a Nintendo system other than the Game Boy Advance until the Nintendo Wii. And even for that, that was kind of like dipping the toes into it. I never like fully dived in to what Nintendo had to offer. And I think that might have just been because obviously you had other consoles, but not having that history with these characters, it wasn't really enticing. Like, oh, let's go see what Link and Zelda are doing. Let's go see what Samus is doing in Metroid. It didn't really call out to me just because maybe that history wasn't there. Pokemon was probably the deepest franchise I got into, obviously with that being more on the Game Boy side of things. That was more where the intrigue was with Nintendo. So a lot of the Mario games I missed out on. Mario Galaxy, I already talked about 64. Sunshine I played a little bit at friends' houses, and I did enjoy that one. Metroids, once again, haven't played. Zelda, haven't played. Pikmin I enjoyed on GameCube. I think I enjoyed more of the multiplayer and that chaos. Smash Bros, another one that was just prevalent with the multiplayer stuff. Going back to Pokemon Snap. I played a little bit. I do remember at my mom's coworker's house, they had a son who was very into, had a big N64 collection. And I remember playing Pokemon Snap at his house for a bit. But that was a game that I know a lot of people talked about, a lot of people loved. I remember streaming that for the first time all the way through a few years ago. And like seeing the depth of the puzzles, like nothing, I guess, super extravagant in terms of difficulty, but just the magic of like, wait, if I do something different here, that allows me to potentially open up a different path. Some of them I know as a kid I never would have figured out for sure. But seeing just the slight differences that they could do, or have you do rather as a player, to take these different paths and progress in the story, was very cool. So yeah, at least on the Nintendo side, that was a big gap. If we're going to talk about the PlayStation era, so PS1, I know there was a lot of JRPGs and RPGs on there that hit it big, that a lot of people were into. For example, the Final Fantasy series, and I know I've talked about this before, but Final Fantasy VII, that's a big omission in my knowledge. Even with the remake, well, I had a coworker, like I was just like assisting with classes, but one of the main instructors was very kind. He's like, hey, try this game out. Let me borrow FF7. And just me, I don't know, didn't click. I was like, graphics look bad. I'm used to my awesome PS2 graphics, whatever it was. Very simple stuff. So I remember running around Midgard a little bit with Final Fantasy VII. I did enjoy the turn-based mechanics of it, just because I had some experience with that with the Game Boy Advance, with Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. But yeah, for some reason it just didn't click. And I've been meaning to go back into it. Whether it's the original, I don't know if I would fully dip my toe into that, but at least with the remakes, obviously this is the time to play them, with FF7 Remake coming out, boy, at this year, or at this point, I don't know how many years ago. You have Intergrade, you have Rebirth literally coming out in a month or two. This is the time to jump back into it. I know it's a little bit mix, or a little bit of a change or modification of the story to make it new, to make it engaging, but that's one I've been like, the regret is there of like, I should have given that a bigger chance, just because of how well renowned FF7 is and how many people absolutely love that game, I would say that's a big one definitely for me. That's like, oof. In terms of the regret at least. There's a lot of these I'm like, no, there's no regret there or want to play it. But FF or Final Fantasy, I'm going to stop saying FF. Final Fantasy 7, I would say, is one that I'm like, man, I should have played that. And I can still, which is the bad thing. I just haven't taken the time to do it. So that's a big one in terms of that. I'm trying to think of what else on the PlayStation side of things was huge. I know ages ago, when Gifted Dim was on as a podcast guest, we talked about Kojima. We talked about the Metal Gear series. We talked about Death Stranding. And I was like, Death Stranding is kind of going to be my first experience with Hideo Kojima. And we briefly talked about Metal Gear. And that's another one I've heard pop up a lot. I don't know too much about the story. It seems a little convoluted from what I've heard in terms of Snake and his doppelgangers. I don't know. Seems like there's multiple versions of him running around. I don't understand the premise at all. I think the most I've watched of Metal Gear, and it's not even a mainline, is Resurgence. It's one of the ones with Raiden, and it's all action and fast and all that. I do remember watching a little bit of 5 when it came out, just because it was the talk of the town at the time. But yeah, that's one I don't know much about. Do not know much about. I know it's stealth orientated. I know you can hide in a cardboard box. I know you get the little exclamation point over your head if you alert guards or whatever. But yeah, that one I have no idea what's the buzz about it, what's going on there. So I'd say that's a big one. On the Xbox side of things, I did play the Halos. I guess Halo 1 I technically did not play, but I did play 2, 3, ODST. Played a little bit of 4, but I think at that point I was kind of burnt out of it. So I can't think of anything big on the Xbox side that I missed, because I did play the 360 generation. Didn't play the original Xbox, so maybe your Fables. That's something I missed. I did try Fable 3. Didn't get its hooks in me in the initial beginning of the game, so I was like, yeah. Oh yeah. So what I have up here to try and help me jog my memory of like what else has come out. I have a list of best-selling video games, so I'll look through that quickly, see if there's anything, at least big omissions of like, oh yeah, that's huge. And I guess one right here is Sonic the Hedgehog. I do have a little experience with Sonic. I think it was another case of like dipping the toe here and there when I did get the opportunity. I mentioned having a little bit of experience with Sega Genesis. I had a neighbor across the street. We would play, it's not Virtual Fighter. It was like a Power Rangers knockoff fighting game. 1v1. V-Troopers? That might be it. But I remember playing that with him, constantly getting beat. But that was probably the most handheld or hands-on experience I had with the Genesis. The only experience besides that with the Genesis I did have was a Sega CD, I believe it was, on the PC, which had like a wide variety of games. Comic Zone, Shining Force, they did have Sonic on there, Vector Man, and Kid Chameleon. Those I dipped my toes into a lot. I would say Shining Force was probably the one I put the most time into, along with Comic Zone. Never got far into them, but that was where I spent most of my time. I did play Sonic, and I enjoyed it. It was one of those things I just didn't understand. I don't know really what I was doing, or felt like I was doing much. It was just like, go to the right. Okay, I got to figure out how to go from left to right. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. And it was that. I did enjoy the introduction of Knuckles. Obviously, he was the hardcore, like, edgy one. So he was cool, and playing around as him and gliding and then climbing the walls with the Knuckles on his hands. That was fun. But yeah, that was another one I never really got into a lot. I would say, once again, circling back to the Game Boy Advance, probably Sonic. Oh boy. Was it just Sonic Advance? It might have been. So you could play as the 4 characters, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. You could play as them and go through the levels. And then you also had a Chow Garden, which I think I spent more of my time in the Chow Garden raising that little dude playing the mini games with him, trying to figure out how to get all the cool stuff to decorate and whatnot. That was a lot of fun. But that was probably the game in terms of the Sonic franchise I put the most into. Other than that, it was just the dipping of the toes. We talked about Mario Kart. First one I owned was Mario Kart Wii. Didn't play it on the N64. Didn't play it on the... Was the 64 the first one? No, I feel like there was... Maybe it was. Yeah, 64 was the first one. Double Dash, I think I played once. Had a lot of fun with it. My cousin had it. We played it over Thanksgiving night, something like that. One of the holidays. That was a lot of fun having all the cousins over there in the chaos for Double Dash. But yeah, the Wii version was my first that I really got into. We talked about the Pokemon franchise. At least the main title games, Gens 1, 2, 3, were big for me. More 2 and 3. When it got to 4 in the DS, that was where I kind of slipped off for a while until X and Y. So there's a few of those that I've missed. I have played the remaster for Diamond and Pearl. It was fine. Sun and Moon couldn't catch my attention. And the recent one, Sword and Shield, and Scarlet Violet, I did enjoy. Other than that, at least in terms of the main titles, those ones I definitely played. We talked about the missing Pokemon Snap. We talked about getting some experience with Pokemon Stadium. But yeah. Call of Duties. First one for me was COD 4, Modern Warfare, which I think was a lot of people's, at least that was the boom period, was 4, Modern Warfare 2. Then you get the weird naming conventions. Then you got the Black Ops period with the Zombies mode. I think after after Modern Warfare 3, that was my drop-off point. Played a little bit of Black Ops 2 in that zombie mode, but definitely years after they had come out. Diablo. Diablo was one I was late to. And this was one that I didn't really have a lot of interest in. I did enjoy, as we talked about previously, I did enjoy the Warcrafts, the original RTS. Didn't enjoy World. Very, very briefly dipped my toes into StarCraft. And when Diablo happened, I was like, I don't know, just running around, smacking stuff. I did play it with some friends, and I was kind of dragged through the experience. So I was like, not for me. So I don't know too much about that world. Didn't really get too much about the story or anything about what was going on. I know a lot of people do enjoy it. I know, obviously, Diablo 4 coming out this year took off. But that's probably another gap. Animal Crossing. Let's go back to Nintendo for a bit. Animal Crossing was huge for Nintendo, I heard. Was it the GameCube? Was the first one? I don't know. It seemed like a lot of people talked about the GameCube version in terms of this is the one. This is great. Didn't play the first one until New Horizons. Pandemic obviously helped a lot with that. Hey, what else are we going to do? There's nothing else. Obviously, if you had work to go to or work at home, you had that time to spend. But yeah, New Horizons was a fun experience, jumping into that for the first time and being this almost communal game where everybody was talking about it online amongst friends. So just learning from each other, oh, this works. You can manipulate the system this way, or this is how you get this friend, and hunting them down. Oh, I got this villager, whatever it was. That was a lot of fun. I did enjoy jumping into that, but that was my first experience. No other experience besides that one. So don't have much history there. I'm going to give Mass Effect a shout out here. And I'm only going to say this is kind of a gap just because, once again, it's another one that a lot of people talk about, but it didn't click with me. I guess it's one of those 50-50, hey, at least I tried it. I tried Mass Effect 1, played it through all the way, and for some reason it just didn't get my hooks into me. I don't know if it was just the social mechanic, just oh, you got to talk to everybody, and everybody's got quests, and everybody's got this, and the Paragon and Renegade, role-playing type mechanics. That didn't get me. The gunplay was fine. the different ammo types, at least in terms of my experience, didn't make any kind of difference. So I was just kind of steamrolling through it. But never engaged me enough to be like, oh, I want to play 2, I want to play 3. Even though I hear, obviously, it gets better from that first one. But it's just not for me. Okay, this one I've played, but I will say this was a gap, at least for a while for me. It was the Resident Evil series. I did not play a Resident Evil, well, 1, because I was a scaredy cat, and 2 for the longest time until RE7. And I think the reason I was so excited to jump into it was just because of some content creators I was watching. They were really hyped for it, and watching them experience it was like, you know what, that looks fun. Let me jump into it. So 7 was my first one. Luckily, they've been remaking them and re-releasing them since, with RE2 remake, RE3, recently RE4 as of this year, and then continuing the series with RE8. Those have all been great. I haven't played much of RE4, but the ones I have played, the other 4 titles, were great. No experience with the originals, obviously, or the original game with RE1. But the time I have spent with these ones I have enjoyed. I'm looking forward to experiencing more with RE4 and seeing where we go from there. If we're going to go back to the PlayStation side of things, so for the longest time, my PlayStation 3 was my remaster console. And what I mean by that is like, oh, what PS2 games did I like? Oh, they have HD collections of the games on PS3. I'm going to play them there. So your Sly Cooper, your Ratchet and Clank, your Jak and Daxter, your Kingdom Hearts, like those were the ones that I was like, that's what I'm going to use my PlayStation 3 for. I'm going to play these games in the collections in their high def form at that time. And that I'm not really going to expand outside that bubble too much. I eventually did get into the God of Wars. I eventually got into the Uncharted's. I don't think I got into Uncharted until PlayStation 4 around time. Last Guardian, I know a lot of people talk about. Is Last Guardian the one I played? Or was it... it's confusing. There's the one with the horse and the boy. I don't think that's Last Guardian. That's... hold on. No, Last Guardian's the dog flying thing. Yeah. So I haven't played Last Guardian. What am I thinking about? Shadow of the Colossus. Didn't play that until PlayStation 4 as well. Journey I was late to. So a lot of the PlayStation catalog I was late to, and I'm sure there's a bunch in there that are like, oh, this is a staple on PlayStation 3. You didn't play that. Haven't played the Resistance series. I know that's another big one. I have played Infamous. Did enjoy those. Scrolling down here, if we're going to go more PC side of things, I guess also technically Xbox, at least with the second iteration. Half-Life. Haven't played a Half-Life. I don't know what the buzz is about that with Mr. Gordon and the story there. Only dipped my toes into Castlevania. That was another one on the, I believe it was the Nintendo, the NES. So no idea of that. Well, we talked RPGs. Chrono Trigger. I know a lot of people like that one, and that's a big acclaimed one. Let's see, 25. Is this all time? It is. Okay, let's look through this one more list. See if this rings any bells. Oh, here we go. Now I just got them in the list. Assassin's Creed we did play. Battlefield we did play. Fallout. Yeah, I put a decent enough time into that. Okay, this list sucks. This one did not help. I was late to The Last of Us. I've talked about my experiences with Last of Us. First one, even with a replay, I don't know. Not my most favorite thing, but the second one I absolutely loved. But that was another one I was late to the party with. Yeah, I don't know. What other games did I miss? What are some ones that you guys think have slipped past me? Obviously, there's a lot of games out there. Only a little bit amount of time to play them, as you can see with the backlog conversation that we've had over the years. Of just like, oh, that came out. I missed that one. There's a lot of games out there, a lot of experiences. But what do you think? What are some big experiences you would recommend for gamers alike that you think they should experience. And yeah, we'll go from there. But this has been another episode of The Wait Where We Talk About podcast, everybody. My name is Bret, aka Enigma911. You can catch the podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma911. You drop a follow over there. You'll get notified when we go live, so you can join on the fun and the conversation. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. You can go over to YouTube or podcast services the very next week. It's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video, an MP3, for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, any way you can support the show: likes, comments, shares, subscriptions, reviews, whatever it is. It may seem small, but does help the channel grow. So if you take the time to do that, we would love and appreciate you for it. Appreciate you guys hanging out today for this video game discussion. Once again, let me know what are some of your favorite games in the comment section. And yeah, we'll see if I played them or I didn't. Thanks for hanging out, guys. Thanks for giving this a watch, giving it a listen. We'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.